All right, hi there, all my CP anatomy students. This is Mr. Taylor, and I'm going to give you some notes on connective tissues since I can't be there to teach you today. And so I'm going to start from the very beginning and just cover this really fast. If you need to stop, pause, rewind, fast forward, anything you need to do, go ahead and do it. That's the beauty of watching a video. And if you have any questions, you can always feel free to email me. You can tweet me a question, anything you need. I'm always available to help you. So please, if you have any problems, please let me know. So here we are, Chapter 3, Connective Tissues. We did a little review on epithelium in class last week. And then we talked about the basic overview of connective tissue and how it's very common. It's very different, unlike epithelial tissue where it's always found lining something. This is found all over the body. It's very, very different stuff. But the main thing to know is about the matrix. That's the most important thing. Okay, so we wrote down these connection or all these different functions for connective tissues. And so if we look at them all, once again, very diverse, very different, lots of different functions, lots of different tissues found in different parts of the body. The main thing is, though, that they all fall somewhere into the spectrum of like connecting, supporting, protecting, transporting, storing, moving, giving your body shape, insulation, and immunity. And if you look, adipose has a lot of those functions. Okay, and then we said there were 5 types of tissue. And these are those 5. We're going to start off with loose, and then we're going to go all the way through to the end, and it won't take long at all. Okay, so loose connective tissues, there's 3 types: areolar, adipose, reticular. Areolar connective tissue, this is the stuff that's usually found underneath of epithelium. So we find this inside your organs, we find it in between other tissue layers. It holds your skin into place, so I always call it skin glue. It holds your organs together, so you can think of organ glue, or as we wrote here, the glue that holds organs together. And so this is a supportive tissue. It's strong, it's flexible, it contains blood vessels, and it sticks things together. And this is what it looks like. So you can see we call it a loose connective tissue because there are a lot of spaces between fibers. So if you look at all those protein fibers in the drawing on the right, and by the way, the picture in the center here, this picture right here, this is showing you um, actually a photomicrograph, which is a microscope picture. This picture over here is just an artist's rendition. And this picture on the left, we're seeing this is the subcutaneous tissue, aka the stuff underneath your skin. But basically, if you notice, a lot of white space, a lot of empty space that's full of fluid. We have a lot of elastic fibers to give it stretchiness. We have a lot of collagen fibers to give it strength. We have a lot of little cells in here that make this tissue. One of the cells we find in here is this thing called a mast cell. And the mast cell is this little red guy right here. Mast cells are basically what make you freak out when you get a rash, when you get acne, whenever your skin swells up. Maybe if you have a cut and you feel like around the cut it swells up. That's what mast cells do. They produce a thing called histamine. And so if you've ever taken Benadryl, it's an antihistamine that actually blocks the effect of mast cells. And basically what that tissue does when it swells up is it's making like a little cast. It's trying to block off the damaged tissue from the rest of your body. Okay, adipose is our second type of tissue. And adipose is fat or fatty tissue. And so we have adipose for a lot of different reasons. You have adipose under your skin, which is basically for insulation to help keep you warm. Your muscles produce heat, so the adipose sits like just outside your muscles under the skin to store it. It also helps you to store energy. And so, you know about this. If you eat too much, if you take in more calories than you can burn off, then you store it as fat. And then you can use that if you ever, if your body's ever starved and needs energy. And actually, you burn through fat every day, whether you know it or not. In between meals, your body's burning some of your excess fat. We also use it for protection. So when you fall down, if you ever notice, if you fall over backwards, you don't just fall straight over, but you kind of stick your rear end out a little bit. And that's what adipose does for us. It helps to protect us. It actually pads your organs. And if you think about it, a lot of people have adipose not only in their rear end, but in the belly region to protect your internal organs, things like that. And so the type of cell we find in here is called an adipocyte, which literally, adipo means fat, cyte means cell. So literally means fat cells. And their job is to store what we call triglycerides, which is a fancy word for saying that's a type of fat, it's a type of lipid. And so when you eat, as we were saying, if you eat more calories than you can burn, your body takes the excess glucose, the excess sugar, and it stores it as triglycerides. So even if you don't eat any fat, your body can take whatever you eat and turn it into fat. So that's why if you ever see something that says no fat or low fat, it doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy. Okay, so this is a look at some adipose. This particular adipose tissue is around the heart, and here it's acting as padding insulation for your heart. And you can see the picture in the center, lots of empty space. That's actually empty space inside of the cells. So adipose cells are very large cells, but each adipocyte contains an area for storing the triglycerides. So if we look at the picture on the left here, here's the nucleus. This is all the cell membrane and all that junk. And then all this stuff in the middle is the triglycerides. And then in these pictures, you can see there's the nucleus. It's very small and pushed off to the side. Very large fat storage area, very thin little membrane. And then this is actually some areolar tissue in here. Here's some other connective tissue surrounding it to give it some structure. And we might even see some blood vessels too running through here to deliver energy to this. And here's another picture of some adipose. And once again, you can see the same structure. It's very, very soft. It's very little structure. So therefore, there's a lot of structural tissue around it on the outside. Okay, the third type of loose connective tissue is called reticular. Every time we see the word reticular, you have to think net. So we see it a lot of times in this class. Reticular means net, and make sure you write that down. Make sure you repeat that to yourself because it's very important. If you remember the endoplasmic reticulum, literally that means the endoplasmic means inside of the cytoplasm, and the reticulum means net. And if you remember, we said it's like a pipeline that's a net-like structure. Well, there you go. Reticular tissue, basically in really soft organs like your kidneys, your liver, stuff like that, this is kind of like their bones. This is like what gives them their structure. And it's very, very, very soft. It's way softer than bones. But basically, it just kind of gives some like scaffolding or some structure to those organs. Same thing with bone marrow. Bone marrow is super soft. It's found on the inside of your bones. This is what kind of holds it together. This also makes what we call a basement membrane, which, if you remember back to epithelium, is the thing that holds the epithelial cells in place. And so this stuff basically does two things. One, it gives a soft support. Two, it acts as a filter. So if you were to look at the spleen, all your blood is filtered through the spleen. If you look at your lymph nodes, all of your lymph is filtered through the lymph nodes. So this reticular tissue makes a net that helps to filter things out. And so we see a lot of reticular fibers, which are basically small, like thinner they're thinner collagen fibers. So it's easy to remember that reticular tissue has reticular fibers. There's also reticular cells, which are similar to fibroblasts in that they make these reticular fibers. But once again, it's just like thin collagen. So here's a look at what this looks like. So we're looking inside of a lymph node. You can see there's the tissue. There's also some little cells. Those are the reticular cells that are making the fibers. And then those little tiny fibers are reticular fibers. Okay, dense connective tissues. Dense tissues are going to have a lot of protein fibers. So if we looked back at the other tissues, they all had a lot of space in between the fibers, or in the case of adipose, really didn't have any fibers at all. When we look at dense connective tissue, we have really like lots and lots and lots of protein fibers packed together. So we find these types of cells called fibroblasts, and these were actually found in areolar tissue too. But their job is to make collagen fibers. So fibro meaning fiber, blast means to make. And we'll actually see that again. So make sure you know that when you see blast, it means to make. So they make collagen fibers. That's all they do. They blast them out all day long. When we look at dense connective tissue, there's three main groups here. First one's called regular, or we call it dense regular connective tissue. And the reason why it's called regular, all the fibers are in a regular pattern. They're all lined up. And there's fibroblasts there to make those fibers. This is how your tendons and ligaments are. And the reason why this stuff's really important is that it's really strong at being pulled in one direction. So think about it this way. When you have a rope has all of its fibers all lined up, and they're all twisted together, but they all run the same direction down the length of the rope. That makes that rope really good at being pulled in one direction, so you can pull on it. The problem with regular connective tissue is much less strong in any other direction. So that one direction it's good for, it's great. But if you try to push in a different direction, there's a good chance it'll snap. And this is actually how people rupture tendons. It's how they rupture ligaments. Especially twisting is really bad for these. So if you plant your foot and then you twist your body weight around, there's a good chance that the tendons and ligaments in your ankle could potentially snap. Same thing with your knee. If you twist your knee too far and put too much weight on it, all those dense regular connective tissues have a chance to break. Irregular tissue, now we take the exact same tissue with tons of collagen fibers, just like regular, except now we're going to make them go in all different directions. So this tissue, instead of having everything lined up, nothing's lined up. Everything runs in every direction, and this gives it strength in every direction. So it's not as strong in that one direction as regular, but it's not weak in any direction at all. The dermis of your skin, the deep layer of your skin, is made of this. In fact, we actually make leather out of cow dermis, and that's why this stuff's really important. It's really strong in any direction. The last one's called elastic, or sometimes we call it dense elastic tissue, and this stuff still has collagen fibers to give it strength. It's kind of similar to dense irregular, but we add in a lot of elastin fibers. And these elastin fibers are just like a little elastic waistband. They help to make the tissue really, really stretchy. So if you ever feel your pulse, like if you were to take your fingers and stick them to your neck or stick them to your wrist and feel your pulse, you can actually feel your arteries expanding and contracting. You're actually feeling this elastic tissue stretching. We find it in other places too. It's found in a lot of organs. You can find it in your bladder, for example. You can find it in your lungs. Your lungs have to expand and contract. And this stuff really helps you with that kind of function. So let's take a look. Here's our dense regular. All the fibers, as you can see, are all lined up, fibroblasts in between, and we're looking at a tendon. Here's another picture, and you can see all those pink or red colored things. Those are all collagen fibers. They're all lined up. In between, all those dark spots are the nuclei of the fibroblasts. Here's some dense irregular. We're actually looking at the dermis of the skin, the deep layer of the skin, and you can see there's lots of fibers going all different directions. There's no regular pattern. So all those little pink areas are all the collagen fibers. Here's elastic tissue. And so this is the aorta, the largest artery in the body. You can see it's got these dark elastic fibers in the middle. Kind of looks like an elastic waistband. Okay, so that's about all the time we have for this video. Next video is going to start with cartilage. So I'm just going to give you a little break. So take a break. And when you come back, you'll start with the cartilage, bone, and blood, and then we'll be all done. Thank you for listening. I hope you learned a whole lot from doing this, and good luck.